Throughout the 3+ years of the war, the Russian military-industrial complex grew at double-digit rates. But in September, the trend reversed. After 3 years of a production boom, growth in Russia's military-industrial complex has stalled and begun to decline, the Moscow Times reports, citing recent data from Rosstat. The military-industrial complex, which had become the main driver of the Russian economy thanks to trillions in budget spending on state defense orders, suddenly collapsed. For the first time since the war, industries linked to the military-industrial complex have stagnated or contracted, following double-digit growth rates for almost 3 years in a row, publication writes. Thus, the latest data for September show that production volumes of finished metal products, which includes most weapons, fell by 1.6% compared to September of last year. By comparison, this category saw a 26.4% increase in 2023 and a 31.6% increase in 2024. In the other vehicles category, which Rosstat classifies all military equipment from infantry fighting vehicles to submarines, growth in September was 6% compared to the same month the previous year. By comparison, this category grew by 34.2% in 2024 and by 29% in 2023. If we compare production in September with August of this year, we see a dramatic decline, -6% and 20% in both categories, respectively. Analysts are calling the latest data on the Russian military industry shocking. Alpha Bank chief economist Natalia Orlova believes the decline in production is the result of the Russian budget running out of funds. All this also negatively affects the supply of ammunition to the Russian army at the front. Recall, as Russian President Vladimir Putin's special military operation against Ukraine approaches its 3rd year. Its casualties increasingly include Russian arms exports, traditionally the economy's 2nd largest export earner after energy. By the end of 2024, Russian arms exports decreased 14-fold from their levels in 2021 by 92% to less than $1 billion. In 2021, before the full-scale invasion began, Russian arms exports generated $14.6 billion. In 2022, $8 billion, and in 2023, $3 billion. The most significant factor behind the reduction in exports is the redistribution of resources for domestic needs, as Russia's military-industrial complex's top priority is now equipping its own armed forces during its military conflict with Ukraine.
Russia claims that the Ukrainian armed forces allegedly struck the dam of the Belgorod reservoir with HIMARS missiles. The strikes reportedly caused damage, according to the Russian telegram channel MNS. According to our information, the hydraulic structure was attacked by 3 HIMARS rockets, the report states. It added that the impact damaged several buildings with technical equipment, the lifting mechanisms of one of the sluices, and the dam crest. At the same time, it was reported that an inspection of the hydraulic structure confirmed that the integrity of the Belgorod reservoir dam was not compromised. There is no threat of flooding to nearby settlements, the channel added. MNS also claims that 2 people were allegedly injured in the attack, one of them a Russian National Guard officer. The Ukrainian armed forces occasionally target military facilities in Russia, typically hitting oil refineries, enemy substations, or other sites that support the Kremlin's war machine. At the same time, Russian attacks are significant to mention. For example, in June 2023, Russian forces struck the Kakhovka hydroelectric power plant in Ukraine, located on the Kakhovka reservoir. As a result, settlements in the Kherson region were flooded, and local authorities announced an evacuation. There were reported civilian casualties and an environmental disaster caused by the strike on the plant, with negative effects on local flora and fauna. In 2025, Russia promised to restore the Kakhovka reservoir after the conflict ends. According to the Center for Countering Disinformation, the Russian-appointed head of the administration in Kherson region, Vladimir Saldo, promised to restore the Kakhovka reservoir. However, he immediately emphasized that this would be possible only after the end of the conflict. Also, the Kremlin's Gauleiter, attempting to remove responsibility from Russia for the destruction of the Kakhovka HPP, once again repeated the fake about the alleged collapse of the dam as a result of missile strikes by the armed forces of Ukraine. Although it has long been known that in fact the Kakhovka HPP dam was blown up by Russian troops in June 2023, and this is confirmed by numerous international investigations, the Center for Countering Disinformation noted. The center stated that the destruction of the Kakhovka HPP led to a large-scale man-made disaster. Hundreds of thousands of hectares of farmland in southern Ukraine were left without water, dozens of settlements suffered, and unique ecosystems were destroyed. Obviously, for the Russian side the phrase, "after the end of the conflict," in reality means never. And with promises to restore the reservoir, it is only trying to create the illusion of care for the residents of the territories under its control and to divert attention from its own actions, the center emphasized. The Center for Countering Disinformation stated that this is actually an attempt to create the illusion of concern for people under occupation and to distract from Russia's own crimes. Five minutes driving across Gaza City showed the destruction in the Jalal Street area left by the Israeli offensive, which was paused by the ceasefire deal reached earlier this month. According to Associated Press, the UN Development Agency said the amount of rubble in Gaza would be enough to build 13 giant pyramids in Egypt or fill up all of New York's Central Park about 40 feet high with debris. The latest joint estimate from the UN, the European Union and the World Bank is that $70 billion will be required to rebuild the strip. Most of them, dead and alive, released, but still 13 bodies remain in the hands of the militants. Israel's retaliatory offensive in the Palestinian territory has killed more than 68,500 people, according to Gaza's health ministry, which is part of the Hamas-run government. It maintains detailed casualty records that are seen as generally reliable by UN agencies and independent experts. Israel has disputed them without providing its own toll.